Okay, so planting garlic is really a very simple thing to do. A couple of things you need. You need to have a good seed stock, and I recommend buying it from a local organic gardener or from a seed supply store. They're all over the internet. And if you have grown it over time, it's a good idea to save your best bulbs and plant those for the following year. I want to give you an example. This is Transylvanian, and I harvested this in July, and it is beginning to deteriorate. So, and that's specifically what I wanted to show. You don't want to plant stuff like this. You want to throw it in the garbage. So I don't use this. Notice that these cloves are very soft. On the other hand, this is one that's done very well. This is chestnut red, a hardneck. And by that I mean it will grow a rigid stem that will produce a seed pod called the garlic scape. And there are many uses for that. You can look for that online. I use it for pesto and also for seasoning salad dressing. But to give you an example, here's one where I'm going to open it up. And you really have to select the best cloves out of the best bulbs. So in this particular one, here's one that's bad. I would never put that in the ground. On the other hand, you'll have some that are nice, solid, and firm. Those are the ones you want to plant. And the key to planting, another key to planting garlic, is always put the root end down and the pointed end up. And you can tell the difference if you're looking at the whole clove. It's kind of obvious, but this is the root, and you open it up, and that's the end of the clove that you would put in the ground. This is a soft neck. I like these better because they store much longer. The hard neck, like I say, produces a beautiful scape, but if you're not going to be eating a whole lot of scapes and making a lot of pesto, it's not worth your time. And if you want to have something that's going to last a long time, this was also harvested in July, and it is completely firm all the way around. I think one of the things that makes it, the soft neck, better is that you'll notice that the stem is kind of like members of the onion family. Those that have a tight stem on the top will tend to store better. Those that are rather loose won't last very long. So let's get started. I've added compost mix from Full Circle Compost, which is what we use all the time, to this existing bed, because garlic sucks up a lot of nutrients. So I've mixed it in, and the objective is to have the soil so soft that if I drop this down, it virtually goes to the top of these forks on this deal. But it needs to be integrated with the rest of the soil that's already there, and I have to be careful that I don't puncture my irrigation lines. So as you can see, this soil is ready to go. And the reason that's so important is the garlic plant, like I said, requires a lot of energy, but the bulb has to expand. If the soil is tight, it's not going to expand nearly as much. So I am going to continue to do this. This is probably the boring part, but it's a necessary part. Again, I want to make sure I don't hit that irrigation line. Nice to see what you're doing. So garlic is generally planted in the fall in this climate. I start in September. So there's a bed over there that I planted about 3 weeks ago, and the garlic is already like 4 inches high. During the course of the winter, that will go dormant and will come back in the spring. It doesn't always die off completely, but you might get a little concerned when you see that happening, and it's really nothing to worry about. Just a couple more minutes here. I will always be conscious of my position to the camera. You know what I mean? So this is mixed in quite well. After I plant, I mean, this property is owned by St. Mary's, and they use Signature Landscaping to do all of their irrigation and landscaping on the whole campus. The water was turned off this weekend, so there is moisture in the soil, and I am anticipating, or at least hoping, that we'll get some moisture over the course of the winter, and it will be sufficient because I'm going to, you'll see in a moment, as I put this in the ground, I will cover it with quite a bit of mulch. So it will hold the moisture that's already there, and if we get rain and or snow, it should be sufficient for the winter. Well, at least it'll be an experiment, because these were thoroughly watered. This will not be watered. And I will not be bringing a bucket up here from home to water during the winter. So this bed is ready to go. Now, what I tend to do, well, I normally have a dibble where I will punch a hole in the soil, but I lost it a couple of months ago, so improvise. So I'm using this to do a furrow. We'll do like at least 4 or 5 of these, and I plant them 2 inches in the ground and 4 inches apart. This is going to be, I'd say, 3 to 4 inches apart. This is going to be 3 to 4 inches apart, mainly because the bulb is rather large. So we'll have probably 60 cloves in this particular area. So now I'm going to open these up, get rid of the ones I don't want, just so I don't make the mistake of using them. But what I plan on doing is using the good ones out of that bunch in some soup I plan on making for dinner. So if you can't open this with your fingers, I use a small paring knife to begin the process. So I would put that in there like that, pop it slightly, and then you have cloves. I don't know if you want me to do every single one today, but if you do, I'm happy to do it. But it's going to be a repetitive process. So then I will line them down. Like so. And the reason I'm wearing this glove is because it just the soil irritates my fingers if you're doing this all day long. It really becomes kind of raw. So I just like to take this is the key point right here. Root side down, point it side up, and press it into the ground. I use as a guide this area of my hand, and that's generally sufficient depth of a clove. And notice the soil is rather soft, so they go in quite easily. So this is going to be planted a little closer than I normally do, mainly because I have like at least 500 cloves already planted in this area. And that way, when it comes up in the spring, and the plants will be smaller because they are closer, I can use that as spring garlic, which is a delicacy, I think. So where do you get your cloves? There are several sources, but right now the supply is being limited because the online suppliers really start taking orders as soon as their catalog comes out. And so that's usually in December, January timeframe. So if you wait any amount of time, you will not have the opportunity from certain suppliers. I do have a little bit left, but not much at all. So I'm just throwing them down just to line them up, and I will do the pointed thing when I finish. This just tells you how easy it is. It's good also to rotate your crop if you have the space. I planted garlic in this bed last year, but I just added some kick from Full Circle compost, so it should have sufficient nutrients. Garlic takes a lot of nitrogen out of the soil. So when I harvest this in July, I will add beans and tomatoes and lettuce in those same beds, so they're productive by the end of the year. So again, I keep saying this is not difficult. So often people are afraid to tackle something they haven't tried and assume that it's going to be difficult. So I'm going to push these in the soil. It's going to take me definitely less than 5 minutes. So if you're organized, you should be able to do this in no time at all. It's a good idea to have this growing in the sun as well, because as with most vegetation, shade slows the growth process. Like I said, I've been doing this for a long time, but I'm always learning. So it's kind of like a lot of other things. If you're organized and you have planned it right, this has literally been completed in, I say, no time. So now I'm going to cover the soil with maybe this much, cover the clothes with maybe this much soil with my hand actually. And I would normally do a pretty heavy watering, but you know what? You deal with what you have. This soil is moist, and I think it has sufficient moisture for this to grow predictably. So it's just as simple as that. Now what I like to do all the time is cover with straw. You can use straw or leaves. You can use compost, whatever your heart's desire, but I think it's important to have at least enough on so you have a bed of straw followed by with the moisture coming, you should be sufficient. Thank you for doing that. Now I just need my other gloves over there.
Whitten.
And I'm also going to put on a mask. We are socially distanced here, but there is a lot of dust in this straw, and I will start sneezing. I hope you can hear me well. Just another reason to wear a mask. Can you hear me?
Yes.
This will really make your hands raw. So, see what I mean about the dust? Now, you can sort of reduce the dust by watering your straw bales down very nicely before you go through this step. What I don't want to do is leave clumps like this, because then when the garlic wants to sprout, it won't be able to push through a matted section of straw. Now, you can use leaves, but you have to make sure that the leaves have not matted together. Maple will do that very easily. So that's all there is to planting garlic. And if you have any questions, you can look on the site that Jolene will maintain, and you can email me. That will be on there as well. Garlic is planted. How about that?